I don't have a fancy car. I drive a 2012 Honda. It's been paid off for 7 years now. It's really easy to maintain, and I'm gonna drive this thing until I can't drive anymore. I don't have the latest smartwatch, nor do I have a fancy Rolex. I have a fossil watch that I bought on sale for about 50 bucks about 4 years ago. And if you look up close, there's a little scratch on it. I don't have the latest iPhone. I have an iPhone 7 that I've been using for the last couple years. And as long as it still works, I'm gonna keep using it until the apps tell me I can't use it anymore. I also don't go out to eat. Instead, I have a food budget that allows me to cook delicious, healthy meals at home that is restaurant quality, and I think that's a luxury to have. I know these things make me seem very frugal, but that's because I am frugal. Hi everyone, this is Joan, and welcome to my channel where I talk about minimalism, self-development, and lifestyle. So I became more frugal in the last several years, and it's been a slow process. I'm on this journey of financial freedom because I want to live a life without any financial burden and open up more possibilities for me, like traveling to see the world, creating experiences and memories, being able to visit my family whenever I want to because they live out of state, and for my husband, his family lives out of the country. I also want to focus on improving my health, being able to see whichever doctors I want to see, being able to support my health with all of the best food and supplements without having to think about the cost. Over time, I realized that material possessions no longer made me happy. And as I'm on this journey to financial freedom, I'm focusing on what truly gives me joy and value, and also improving the quality of my life. Before I became frugal, I was a huge consumer. I was spending so much money on unnecessary things. I was buying clothes, decor, random gadgets, going out to eat, going to bars, drinking alcohol, paying for activities like escape rooms, karaoke bars, and all of that I was spending on my credit card. Now I was wasting so much money that I didn't even have on things that I thought would make me happy. So I got into a lot of debt trying to pay for this lifestyle I couldn't afford, and at the same time I was still paying off my car, I was still paying off my student loans, and back then I was also a freelance musician, so I was literally living paycheck to paycheck, feeling unsure about when the next paycheck was gonna come in, and having to do one of the things I really hated doing was to borrow money. I remember there was one night I was playing this gig, and I think the next day was when rent was due, and I was looking at my bank account knowing that this gig was only gonna pay me like 80 bucks. Texted my younger brother, who happened to make more money than me at the time, and I asked him, hey, can you loan me $200 because I'm short on rent, and I'll pay you back the next time I get paid. And that was such a horrible feeling for me, and I never wanted to feel that again. I also had a scarcity mindset that came from my childhood of not having a lot of money growing up. So when I became an adult, I just had a really bad relationship with money. So about 5-6 years ago, I realized that things had to change. I had no savings, I had no emergency fund, and the debt just kept growing and growing. I was also struggling to make more money. Especially after 2020, things started to get really expensive. And I realized that financially, I was not moving forward. So what did I do? I became frugal. And one of the things that I decided to do was become a minimalist as well. I started getting rid of everything that I didn't need. I got rid of things that reminded me of my past, things that reminded me of my horrible spending habits, and I just got rid of it all. I also moved twice. I realized that I wasn't able to keep up with my lifestyle living in a big city like LA, so I moved to a smaller town, and then eventually I moved to another state. Rent was just getting more and more expensive, so it just made sense to try a different state where I could start fresh and also go hard on my finances. I started reading a lot of books. You've probably heard of Dave Ramsey. I read 2 of his books, and I also started learning how to budget. And that was a big game changer, is learning how to budget and just coming up with a plan to pay off debt. Now I track all of my spending. I keep all of my receipts so that I can categorize all of my expenses. I use a software that helps me categorize everything that I spend my money on. I have an Excel sheet where I track how much money I make, how much money I'm spending, and just to make sure that I don't go over my budget. I've also learned how to shop deals. Back in the day, I used to just buy everything at Trader Joe's and at Whole Foods, and I didn't care how much things cost. But when things started getting more expensive, I had to take a step back and really think about how much money I'm spending on food. So after a little bit of research, I've learned where to go shop for bulk, where to go shop for produce, dairy, all those things. I've learned where to buy the best deals. And now I'm able to stay under our monthly budget for food. And everything we buy outside of our regular expenses, we keep the receipts, we budget for, we keep it accounted for so that we know that we have the money to pay for it. And one of the most frugal things that I do now is I cut my own hair. I also cut my husband's hair, and we've saved so much money just cutting our own hair. I mean, a woman's haircut can cost over $100 and men's can cost over $60. And think about how much money we're saving not having to cut our hair at a salon or a barber 3 or 4 times a year. And I also make my own coffee. Now, I love coffee, and I used to go to Starbucks all the time, trying out all the local coffee shops, but my husband and I decided to invest on a really nice espresso machine, and we save so much money not going out for coffee, and we just make delicious coffees, lattes at home. Despite having a frugal lifestyle, there are still luxuries that I choose to afford. You've probably noticed that I have a really nice apartment, and it's considered a luxury apartment. It has a gym, it has 2 swimming pools, it also has a really nice work lounge if I don't want to work in my apartment. It looks very high-end from the inside and as well as the outside. But having this luxury apartment is something that I refuse to compromise on. Just a little backstory. My husband and I used to rent this old house back in LA. It was a 4-bedroom house built in the 1960s that we shared with a few other roommates before we decided to move out. And while the rent was somewhat affordable, splitting it with roommates, the condition that the house was in was really the reason why we moved out. It turned out it had mold. And my husband started to get really sick. He was having a hard time breathing. He was having nosebleeds. And when we realized how bad the condition of that house was, we had to leave. And from that point on, we vowed we would never live in an old place again. And this is why we choose to live in a luxury apartment unit, is because we wanted someplace that was clean, that was newer. I mean, our apartment, I think, is only about 4 years old. And because we prioritize our health, this is something that we refuse to compromise on. So when it comes to health, food is really important to us. Therefore, we have a pretty sizable food budget. I cook at home almost every day, maybe twice a day, and I cook delicious, healthy meals. I have to give myself props that I am a pretty good cook. And so when you look at some of the things I make, it's almost restaurant style. And that's why we hardly go out to eat, is because I cook pretty well. I make sure I buy good quality food, good quality produce. I do shop deals and I pay attention to what goes on sale. And because our food budget is pretty big, I can buy high quality food. I also won't compromise on clothes. I learned this the hard way back in the day when I used to buy clothes from Forever 21 and H&M, and I would go shopping all the time, buying cheap clothes, and they would just eventually fall apart and I would have to buy them again. Since learning that lesson, I focus on buying high quality clothes. I don't necessarily buy the most expensive designer brands, but I'll buy high quality brands that I know the clothes will last me a long time. I'll be able to wear them for years to come. And as you know, I invest on high quality equipment, such as my espresso machine, because it has saved me so much money. It is built to last as long as we take care of it, and we get to enjoy a morning latte almost every single day. And one of the luxuries that I also choose to afford is investing in knowledge. I have a lot of books on self-development, on finances, on building businesses, paying for courses to learn new skills, paying for anything that will expand my mind. I really value education and higher knowledge, so this is a luxury that I choose to afford. So how are things going now? Since beginning my journey on financial freedom and choosing a frugal lifestyle, I finally have an emergency fund of $1,000. I also have a fully funded emergency fund that can cover expenses for up to 3 months. And being on a budget, which is such a game changer, I never have to worry about not having enough money to pay for anything. My scarcity mindset went away. Just having this budget gives me peace of mind that no matter what expenses come our way, I know we have the money to pay for it, or that we can plan on coming up with the money to pay for it. I also have not used my credit card in years, and I'm actually making progress on paying it off. Being frugal is not easy. There are things that I have to say no to, experiences that I might have to hold off on, expenses that I'm just not willing to make at this point. But I have to say, I feel good having this kind of lifestyle. I'm working towards my financial freedom. I am building a future without any financial burden. And as long as I stay focused on my budget and on my plan, for all you know, in the next 2 years, things will look completely different and my possibilities have opened up. I used to think money ruined my life, but now that I've learned more about money and I've fixed my relationship with money and I've learned how to budget, I feel like I'm in control. I feel like I'm in control of my finances and I have more control of my life and where it's going. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you have any questions at all, drop a comment below. And if you're also on a frugal lifestyle, I would love to hear about it. I plan to make a video on how I budget and how I save in the near future, so keep an eye on that. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.